everybody, it is Jenna from the Up North Home. So today I wanted to do my first garden tour video of 2021 and show you guys what I'm growing, how I'm growing it, and how my garden's going, because this is a first year garden and I have started this from scratch. And a lot of things that I'm growing this year it's a first time for me. So I have been trying so hard to keep these plants alive. I have been struggling with a few pests, and it's kind of a first for me. Let's go ahead and check out what I have here, and I'm going to show you also my favorite garden tool. Seriously, everybody needs it. It's amazing and so simple. But let's go ahead and check this out, and I'll show you all that. So let's go. So first, in the very first row here are my onions. I have about 340 onions, and there's two varieties. I have the copra onions and I always forget the other one. Red Zeppelins. I always forget the name. But they're probably about half and half. And so far they're doing pretty well. I've had three go to seed, so I'm assuming it's because we've had such oddly cold weather. As you can tell, I'm in a fleece right now. It's about 9 o'clock at night and it's about 58 degrees. So that's probably why I had some of them go to seed, 3 of them. So, but other than that, they're looking good. The tips are turning a little bit brown and they've been seriously wind blown. We have horrible wind here, so they have been wind blown, but other than that, so they've kind of, they're kind of droopy here and there, but overall, I think they're doing good. So let's take a closer look and see where they're at. Now, I planted these the second week of April. So here are the copra onions so far, but as you can see, they're looking really great. So I'm pretty happy with them so far. So you can see the tops are they've really been blown around, but still going good. Let's go down and take a look at the red zeppelins down here. So when I first planted these back in April, I did have a cover, some of the clear plastic fabric over them to protect them. I would take it down, kind of open it up during the day, and then put it over at night, specifically if we were expecting a frost. So this is where the copras end, and then these are all red zeppelin down to the end. And these ones actually are a lot worse for wear. They have a lot more stalks that are kind of bent over and stuff. But some of these were really big when I planted them, and some were really tiny, but I planted the tiny ones anyways. But all in all, pretty happy with the onions so far. Alrighty, so next behind me, this is also the front row. The other end of the onions is the broccoli. So for a long time, I didn't have these staked, and we have such horrible wind here that they were blowing over, and I actually lost one to wind. It got blown completely over, and the stalk broke, and so I just ended up pulling it. But after that, I did get these bamboo stakes for $2.99 for a dozen at Tractor Supply, and I staked these, and I have them tied with some of those garden twisty ties, and now they're doing amazing. And to be honest, I've never gotten broccoli this big. I've never successfully grown broccoli. I have tried it last year, They were infested with white flies so bad, and what were those? Like slugs, I think it was. I want to say slugs. Totally ate them, like bad ate them. And I put neem oil on them and did everything that I possibly could. Nothing else in the garden was getting eaten but the broccoli. And so I almost gave up, you guys. If you've seen my seed starting video, I said, I don't know if I'm going to grow broccoli this year because I've tried it before and it was a total mess and didn't work. And well, I ended up doing it anyways because I thought I don't want to just not try, and I had seeds, so it wasn't like I was It wasn't like I was going out and spending money on them. I already had the seeds, so I did plant some. I started all my seeds inside, by the way, and transplanted them outside. So these are the broccoli, and they're actually, it looks like I might get broccoli, guys. Seriously. So let's take a close-up look. It's pretty awesome. That super excites me because I never, like I said, this is the first time that it looks like I may successfully end up with broccoli. I have been kind of pulling off some of the branches, especially trying to keep them from touching the ground. So yeah, every day I pull a few leaves off, starting from the bottom usually, to feed to my rabbits. And they really love it. They really like the broccoli leaves. And these two, I planted these probably a couple weeks after the onions, not on purpose, but because they were so small and tender and we were getting such cold weather. I did end up putting them out a little bit later, and then they were covered as well with the onions, which was a really big pain in the butt to cover this whole row because they're 70-foot rows, so I need about a 75-foot or so piece of fabric, and that was really hard to deal with just myself. Even with my kids helping me put it on and off, and then our wind is so bad here, I had tons and tons of rocks holding it down, and still the wind would blow it out, so it was really frustrating. But that's my whole first row. So row 2, I have cauliflower, and I can't remember. Yes, this is all one kind of cauliflower. Let's see, did I write it down? Yes, early cauliflower is what they are. And so if you remember my seed starting video this year, I was doing 2 kinds. I also had amazing cauliflower. Well, the amazing cauliflower I couldn't get to live. So like I was saying, I started amazing cauliflower too. This is early cauliflower. And I started amazing cauliflower that I got from Baker Creek, and I could not get them to live. They would get a couple weeks old or whatever, tiny little sproutling, and they would all die. I definitely won't be purchasing those again next year. I don't know if it's my area or the weather that we've been having or what, but they just are not working for me. So yeah, so next over here I have carrots. So I've got 6 little sections of carrots, and I planted 2 different kinds, like a long carrot and a short sweet carrot. And what I did was I had a section here, and I split it, and I used my little metal rings that I had to hold up my fabric when I covered, and I marked it into 6 equal segments, and then I planted 3 with 2 of the long and 1 short, and then I waited 2 weeks and I planted 3 more with the opposite, 2 shorts and 1 long. I think I said that correctly. So anyways, the idea was that I would have a staggered harvest of carrots, so they wouldn't all be done at the same time, and I'd have a little bit of time to take care of them or to eat them or whatever we're going to do with them. So they are tiny. I planted them way late. Most of the things that I direct sowed in the garden, I did way late. Not that big of a deal, but I did finish, or today I was working on thinning this section of carrots. I am going through, I've got to thin the other 2, but yeah, maybe tomorrow. So here's what I'm talking about. I used these hoops to divide into sections, and these first 3 are planted with carrots, short and long carrots. And then a couple weeks later, I planted these 3 sections. So they don't look like much yet, but you can see they're coming up. I did 2 rows in my hills. So I'm gonna have a lot of carrots. And down here is the cabbage. So about 2 weeks ago, the cabbages weren't looking very great, and I thought, are they going to start looking like cabbages soon? Because they just weren't doing anything. They were big, but not forming into balls. And yeah, but we had like a week and a half straight of rain every single day, all day, just rain, 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 cold weather. And by cold, I mean like cold for summer temperatures, not cold like winter cold or anything, but you know, in the 50s during the day, maybe 60s and like upper 50s during the day, and in the 40s at night, which is pretty crazy. But all that rain really just, these cabbages loved it. And the cool weather, the cabbages just loved it. And they took off. And finally, I have things that look like cabbages. So I'm pretty excited. I've got two varieties here. These four are the same variety. Let me see. I can't see my thing. Oh, yes. They are early cabbages. And then over here, these big ones, these are the ones from Baker Creek. And they are the Dutch cabbages. It's my first time growing this kind, and they're supposed to be really big heads. So I'm assuming because they're supposed to be so big, they're probably going to take a little bit longer too. I can't remember what the package said, but they do look really spectacular in the garden. And when everybody comes by and sees the size of these things, it's quite impressive to see. So we'll see. I hope that they turn out, because I'd really love to see a huge cabbage head, you know, come out of the garden. But pretty exciting. Now these were planted outside. I started these inside like everything else. But I started them inside and I planted them outside, I think about a week after the onions, about the same time that I put the broccoli out. And so I had just them in this row, and so it was a lot easier to cover and uncover them because I only had like half a row to worry about covering. I might move them to the back next year so that they maybe are in a little bit cooler location, because they just really get too hot during the day. But yes. And behind them are my sweet peppers. Alright, so this row here has a few different things, but this end, almost half the row, are sweet peppers. These are the California Wonders, I believe. And I haven't really been paying them much attention lately, so I need to weed in here, and I need to come in and pull off some of these leaves down here and get them kind of all prettied up so that they can produce more fruit instead of more leaves. But they are looking good. They are growing. They're pretty small yet, but I'm hopeful. It's super cool looking. But after the sweet peppers over here, I have an empty spot that I plan on doing some more radishes in soon. But they can grow into the cold weather, so I'm waiting right now to do that. But I have these two sections here are radishes. They're quite tiny, but these are one of the things I direct sowed into the garden, and I was quite a bit late on doing so, but no problem. They'll grow, and they'll grow fast. And I'll be able to plant again, which is I'll probably stagger grow these into that blank spot that I was talking about. There's two different kinds. This bigger section here are the German Giants. And this smaller part here is the cherry bell radish. I had maybe half a pack of seeds left, so I just did that, and I don't plan on buying more of these seeds, but so that's what I got for radishes. And right here is my potatoes. So I've never grown potatoes before, and until recently we didn't even eat potatoes, but I thought, hey, we're eating potatoes, I'm gonna try to grow some. And I grabbed a bag of seed potatoes from Tractor Supply and held on to them and held on to them, and they sat in my pantry in the basement for like way too long, and they were really growing in the bag. And I thought, man, I'm not gonna plant these aren't gonna grow. But I decided to go ahead and plant them anyways, even though they were like way overgrown in the bag, and I didn't know if it was going to work, and I've never grown potatoes before, and I didn't have a spot outside of the garden, and I wanted to plant them in a different spot separate from the garden. But I thought, you know what? I have plenty of room in the garden. I'm just going to throw them in there. It's better than throwing them away or letting them go to waste or whatever. So if it doesn't turn out, who cares? I just need to put them in the ground anyways. And I did, and boom, they started sprouting out of the ground so fast, and they were looking so big and bushy and beautiful. And then potato bugs came, and one stalk knocked over, the other stalk knocked over, and then I'm like, wait, what are these red bugs? And I quickly began trying to fight them off, and I have been literally just coming out here once a day. Every morning after I have my coffee, I come out and I search through these plants. There's probably 11 of them, 11 potato plants, and I literally just go through every look, under every branch, look through everything. Takes me probably 20 minutes or so to go through them all, and I just literally squish them with my fingers or with, like a rubber glove, and just squish them all. And I do that every day, and I almost have none. The past 3 days, I've almost had none, maybe 3 or 4. There's barely any, so I'm hoping if I just keep at it and be vigilant about it, that they'll survive and they'll be fine, and I'll have potatoes and everything's going to be fine and dandy. But they are toppled over, a lot of them, most of them, but they're still alive. And yeah, so hopefully there's not much of an adverse effect by that. A lot of these pests I've never had to deal with, and I don't know what was, there was a small garden here before, and I know they grew pumpkins, but I don't know, like, what else they had in the garden and where they planted it and things of that nature. So, kind of luck of the draw on some things on where I planted them. Maybe they had issues before, and these bugs are right here in the ground coming up and thinking, oh, look, the same zucchini's right here again or whatever. But anyways, so there's the potatoes. And then right behind the potatoes, I have a small section of dill that I planted from seed. These were older seeds. I believe they were from 2019, I want to say. So it was kind of splotchy the way they came up. There are some bare spots, and then there's some really thick spots. But I wanted to grow this just so I could use it for when I make pickles. So they're right behind the potatoes, which I heard was like, good for repelling insects. But I don't know if that's true because they're too small to really have an effect anyways. And right here, I direct sowed this little section with some lettuce that I had. It's the leaf lettuce. It's barely coming up. These are old seeds too that I didn't want to go to waste. And to be honest, I hate salads, but I thought I would just put them in there and grow them anyways and see what happens. I do see a few of them little guys finally coming up. But so I think that they'll come up and we'll have a harvest of them. And if I don't eat it, which we'll eat some of it, but some of it will probably just go to our animals. It's nice to grow food in the garden for your other animals, your chickens or pigs, which I don't have, but I really, really want pigs, and our rabbits and things like that. So next to that in this row, I have a kind of mixture, half zucchini and half yellow summer squash. And I have had my first encounter this year with the dreaded squash vine borer. I've never had such an annoying pest in my garden. They don't seem to be affected by anything. Like, they hate me. It's been probably 2 or 3 weeks. Probably 2 weeks since I found them and realized, like, I went probably a week and a half seeing that and not knowing what it was, and we had family over on vacation, and so I was too busy. I wasn't even barely in the garden for a whole week and a half when those borers were in here eating these things, and I was totally oblivious, thinking, everything was going great. And then it wasn't until after they left and I could get back into the garden, full time, that I was like, what is this? And I looked it up, and oh my gosh, these things, I don't know. These are very resilient plants apparently, but I haven't found anything that really stops them from laying eggs on the plants. But I'll tell you what I'm doing, and so far, so good. But I'll tell you what I'm doing. That is One, praying. Two, I buried the stems as deep as I could. So I know that it's risky to plant zucchini really deep, that you can get them rotting out, but it was either they're going to be eaten by bugs or I have a chance of them getting rotted out. And I took the chance at them rotting out. So far, I haven't had any issues, so that's good. I've had very little issues now. Like, I come out every other day and I physically look at every stalk, every leaf stalk, and on top and under the leaf, and I look over all the plant that I can see for those little red dots, and I physically pick them off with my fingers, squish them, kind of roll them between my finger, and throw them down. Hopefully that gets rid of them or whatever, but so far it seems to be working. All my plants look healthy, and I'm just going to keep doing that. So I'm hoping that I'm through the worst and it's just going to get better. So I have tons of squash, the yellow squash, growing, great fruit, and I realized, you know, they look so much alike, especially when you're looking at a tiny plant. And I apparently mistaked a couple zucchini for summer squash. So I had like half summer squash and half zucchini. And then I was looking and I thought, wait, that's a zucchini growing on the squash plant. And so I realized apparently two of the zucchini got put in with this in the yellow squash section, but that's okay. I don't care. It's fine. But go ahead and take a look at these cute little plants. So you can see that they are doing really well. They have lots of flowers and lots of fruit coming on. They're very green, and you know, they're standing up tall, they're growing. They've grown a lot. So I'm hoping and praying that they just continue to grow and thrive. Right behind the zucchini and the summer squash are my watermelon. I have 7 of them right now, and they're all looking really healthy. They're not especially large, but they are vining now. I did buy some stakes that I'm going to probably utilize for the watermelon and for the pumpkins, which are right back there. My garden is in raised rows, and the rows are from the very edge, right here to the other edge is approximately 3 foot. And my aisleway that I walk in is right about 18 inches. Yeah. And so 3 foot and 18 inches. I wanted the walkway to be big enough I could bring a wheelbarrow down if I needed to, and also so that I could use a rake if I wanted to. And the rows I wanted, or you know, where they are planted, I wanted it to be fairly wide, especially for my bigger plants, but I wanted to be able to still reach the other side, and you know, from one side I wanted to be able to reach all the way across, and I can also jump from one aisle to the other, no problem. And so I'm pretty happy with the size and the portions that I chose. But anyways, the watermelon is doing good. So right here are my jalapenos. I have 25 jalapeno plants, and I got these stakes the other day. I ordered them off Amazon because we get a lot of wind, like I said, and I don't want them to be blown over. So I don't have them tied to it or anything at this point because they're so small, but I wanted to be prepared as they get taller that I can strap them up there if I need to. They're pretty small, but I did come through just yesterday, I believe, and I weeded them, and I pruned some of their lower leaves and things off to try to get them to grow taller and produce some more fruit. But they're looking really nice right now. Nice and healthy and green. They're just small. Still small. But we love jalapenos, we love peppers and stuff, so I'm excited to have some homemade jalapenos, or homegrown jalapenos will be awesome. But behind them is my row of pumpkins. I have a whole row of pumpkins, and there are two varieties. This side is the small sugar, and the other side are the jack-o'-lanterns, and so one is obviously a little bit bigger. Both of them are supposed to be good varieties for baking and for storing and things, which is why I got them. But so far they're looking healthy, and with all this rain that we've had lately, they've just really taken off. So I have been burying a little bit of the vines because I'm trying to get them to root out in as many places as possible in case they do get a vine borer, that, you know, hopefully it'll only take out a small portion of the plant and not the entire thing if they have a bunch of roots. So that's what I'm working on. But let's take a look and see what they look like up close. They're really cool. So like I said, these ones are the small sugar pumpkins, and they're really growing well, and the vines are starting to really spread out. They have a lot of blossoms on them already. So this is kind of what I was talking about. I just kind of moved some of the wood chips away and tried to press these segments down to the ground, give them some contact with the dirt, and then just covered them up a little bit with the wood chips to keep them pressed to the ground, hoping that then they will send out roots here, and the plant will just be much more resilient if they do get a pest. But lots of stuff going on in there. I've never grown pumpkins, so it is widely grown in my area. There's lots of fields of pumpkins here. So I think they're gonna do great. But here's another example of where I kind of buried a little bit of the vine so that it can really send down some new roots there. But they're doing great, as you can see. I do have a small one there for some reason. Not sure what's holding that one back. But there's another little fruit. So that's the last of the small sugar pumpkins, and this is where the jack-o'-lanterns start. Look how big that one is. It's pretty impressive. But yeah, I think those stakes will come in handy as these grow, and if they want to come down into the aisle, that's fine. I don't mind if they spread out or anything, but if I have trouble walking through here at any point, it'll be nice to be able to tuck them back up onto the hill and have a little guide for them to keep them from coming down too much. But they're all looking really good. And behind them, so this is a whole 70-foot row of pumpkins. Pretty cool. Behind the pumpkins are my tomatoes. So I have several varieties here, and I just actually got my nets and everything, my trellis up, I think 3 days ago now. And I also have a trellis back there for the cucumbers. But this end is mostly like my Romas. I think these 4 here are Roma, and then I've got several Amish paste here. I just came through today and weeded these, and I've been trying to keep them pruned nice. But they did have some yellowing and stuff on the bottom leaves, so I think I'm low on nitrogen, so I did fertilize them today as well. Hopefully that helps them out. I have had a little bit of leaf curling upward recently, and I think it's because of the wind we've had, just such strong wind that they're kind of trying to protect themselves. But yeah, they're looking great. I'm excited because I love tomatoes. Tomatoes and cucumbers have always been my favorite thing to cook or to grow and to preserve and things, making pickles and stuff like that. So I have a few white tomasols somewhere in this area. I have them all marked, and then down at the other end are going to be all of my Brandywine tomatoes, and then the end is all of the classic beef steaks that I had. So these are pretty big, a couple foot tall. Here's where the Brandywine starts. And let's see, I haven't noticed any actual fruits started yet on the tomatoes, but I have noticed lots of new blooms coming in. You can see there's some flowers starting. During the day, you see a lot of yellow flowers down here. I think there's some flower heads. But then right here is where the classic beef steak starts. And they're pretty big. They're definitely a lot bigger than the other plants. They're almost to my hip tall there. But I love growing tomatoes. So the nets that I have here are 60 foot long and my rows are 70 foot. So at the end I kind of made my own netting with some garden string, garden twine, and I just tied it to the post and I went back and forth, and then I did a string down where every plant was so that I could just kind of weave them in there and lean them up against the strings. So maybe in the future I'll buy a net. They didn't have just a 10-foot net, so maybe I'll buy the 30-foot one and cut it into a couple pieces for the 2 spots. But I got, obviously you've probably seen a trellis similar to this in other videos. I did find it on YouTube. It's just 7-foot T-posts that I got, and the metal conduit, they're 10 foot long, and some PVC T's on top, and then I just wove the net in and out, and I connected the nets to the T-posts with zip ties. And yeah, it's my first year doing this trellis, and I'm really liking it. So I like the way it looks too. That's always nice. And so I wasn't sure how much space I was going to need for everything that I was growing. So I did end up with kind of a couple rows back here that don't really have much in it. So because I am growing a lot of new things this year, and because I've never had a garden this size, I really wasn't sure how much space I would need and how much space everything would take up. And I haven't grown on such a large scale as far as trying to provide for my family for a whole year, if possible. So I wasn't sure how many of these plants I'm going to need to supply a year's worth of food. I wasn't sure some of the plants, like how much fruit am I going to get off of one plant and all that. So this is definitely a learning year for me, and I've already learned so much, and next year is going to be even more awesome. I just know. So anyways, so because of that, I ended up with 2 rows where I didn't really have anything to put in it, and I didn't want to, at that point, I didn't want to just direct sow things. But I had a bunch of pumpkin starts that I had started inside, and I filled up my whole row, and so I just had several extra. And then a couple weeks after I planted, I thought, you know what, I should just plant those pumpkins, and even if I don't use them, I could give them to my neighbors or give them to the chickens or whatever. I'm sure that somebody or something will enjoy them. And I thought, especially when I had the vine borers, I thought, well, if some do die, then I'll have backups, I'll have extra. And plus, it's kind of an experiment thing because the very back row does get a little bit more shade than the rest of the garden because of the pines behind here. And so I thought, well, I'll see. It's a little bit different growing environment in that back row, so I'm gonna just see what kind of a result that I get. It's kind of an experiment. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pumpkins in this row, and I think 7 in the back row. And behind there is the cucumbers. So I've got just a couple straight 8s at this end because I had extra space and I didn't have enough munchers to fill this up, so I put some straight 8s here at the end, and then all the other straight 8s are down there. So yeah, that bad planning, I guess, on my behalf. But I came through here today and finished weeding, and I've been pruning off the suckers and things. These are where the munchers start, and I've got lots of blossoms on them and several little baby cucumbers growing. Some of them aren't quite tall enough to reach the net yet. Some of them I still just have to come through and get them propped up on there. But so that they can grab hold. But there are some little tiny cucumbers starting. So, like I said before, my garden is about 50 by 70, so my rows are 70 foot long. And then the cucumbers and the tomatoes I planted 1 foot apart, so I have 70 of each of those plants. So that's going to be a lot of cucumbers and a lot of tomatoes. But I would rather have more than not enough. So I am going to be preserving everything in the garden. Will be preserved in some way, along with eating fresh. I'll be canning, I'll be dehydrating, I'll be freezing, I'll be sharing with my chickens and my rabbits and everything. So this is my first garden tour, and I hope that you guys like it. I am excited to see how everything grows and what kind of results I get at the end. Hopefully you guys found this helpful or inspiring, but I have one last thing to show you, and that is my favorite garden tool. I know that broad forks are all the rage in today's gardener videos and things, and I just find them to be too expensive. But I do have a favorite tool that I use in my garden, and it's literally the only tool that I use in my garden other than my 2 bare hands. So it is this fancy schmancy hoe. It's not really fancy actually, but I got this probably 5 or 6 years ago at Walmart. This particular one is from Walmart, I believe. Yes. And it's just a hoe that looks like this. So it's semi-sharp on either side here. And you just you can go forward and backward, and it pulls up the weeds and loosens your soil at the same time. So I think it's amazing. It is my favorite thing, and way cheaper than a broad fork. So I find it much more useful and much more economical. And yeah, this is what I go with. Alright, so that's it for my first garden tour of 2021. I hope that you guys enjoyed it, and make sure that you subscribe so you can see the garden grow and watch the next video in the future for the garden. And I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you for stopping by.